The oak-paneled conference room at Ashford and Associates went dead quiet the moment my brother Derek finished speaking. 11 rental properties scattered across prime Texas real estate, Austin, Dallas, Houston. Total estimated value, somewhere around $4.6 million. And Derek had just informed everyone, with absolute certainty, that every last one belonged to him. It makes perfect sense, my mother chimed in, squeezing Derek's arm. He's poured his heart into managing those buildings ever since Grandpa passed. If anyone deserves them, it's him. My father rubbed his temples and exhaled slowly. Elena, I hope you can see where we're coming from. Derek has always stepped up. He's the one with the head for numbers, the one who never backed away from responsibility. From the far end of the polished conference table, my Aunt Patricia let out a short laugh. Honestly, Elena, what would you even do with a portfolio of rental buildings? You spend your days filing reports in some municipal office. I didn't flinch. My hands rested calmly on the table, fingers laced, breathing steady. 6 years. I had been carrying this truth for 6 years, observing every move, cataloging every lie, biding my time for precisely this occasion. Well then, Derek said, reclining in his chair with a self-satisfied grin. No objections? No dramatic outburst? I'm impressed. Maybe you've finally learned to accept how things work. I studied my father's face across the table. He was 75 now, thinner than I remembered, the lines around his eyes deeper. He had always favored Derek. Every time, without exception. The firstborn son who walked on water. Dad, I said softly, you have no idea what's actually going on here, do you? His coffee cup, we'd been having brunch before this so-called meeting, rattled against the saucer as his hand trembled. The color drained from his face. Derek's smugness vanished in an instant. What do you mean? I let myself smile. All of it. Before we go on, please subscribe and like this video, my dear listeners. Your support motivates me to tell even more engaging stories. As far back as I can remember, I was the daughter nobody noticed. Derek had 4 years on me, loud, athletic, magnetic, the one everyone expected to carry the Whitmore name forward. I was the introvert, the reader, the girl who was too much in her own head, as my mother liked to put it. The summer I turned 15, Grandpa Harold found me sitting alone on his back porch at our 4th of July barbecue, reading a book about commercial leasing while everyone else played horseshoes. Elena, he said, easing into the chair beside me, you've got that same look I used to have. The one that makes people assume you're not paying attention. But you're paying more attention than anyone, aren't you? Grandpa Harold had constructed his real estate business brick by brick. He started in 1964 with a rundown triplex on the east side of Austin, a property nobody else would touch. Over the next 4 decades, he bought, renovated, and held. By the time I came along, he controlled 19 rental units across 3 Texas cities. Your dad never had the nerve for this kind of work, Grandpa confided during one of our Sunday afternoon drives, a ritual we started when I was 13. Just the two of us cruising through different neighborhoods while he pointed out buildings and explained what made each one profitable or not. And Derek. Derek thinks wealth is something you inherit. He's never understood that it's something you build. But he recognized something different in me. The way I peppered him with questions about zoning laws and depreciation schedules. The way I sat still and listened, actually absorbed it, when he walked me through net operating income and debt service coverage ratios. The day I turned 18, Grandpa laid out his proposition. I'll cover your entire education. Any university you want, whatever you choose to study. But here's the deal. I want you to pursue a double concentration in finance and urban development. And every break, every summer, you come work alongside me. Not as a favor. As an apprentice. I said yes before he finished the sentence. Nobody at home even registered the decision. Derek was at Princeton studying economics, the crown jewel of the family. I enrolled at the University of Texas. She couldn't get in anywhere better, my mother murmured to my father at dinner, not realizing I could hear every word, and threw myself into the work with everything I had. During breaks, I absorbed it all. Lease negotiation, contractor oversight, tenant mediation, regulatory compliance, portfolio-level financial modeling. Grandpa Harold wasn't a gentle teacher. He was rigorous, demanding, relentless. He handed me struggling properties and told me to diagnose them. He put me in rooms with difficult tenants and watched how I handled the pressure. "You see angles I miss," he said one afternoon, after I'd spotted a depreciation recapture strategy that could have saved him $40,000 on a recent acquisition. "And you don't let your ego get in the way of learning. That's rarer than you think." But I kept it all to myself. I let the family go on believing I was just doing odd jobs around Grandpa's office, filing papers, answering phones, while Derek collected prestigious summer internships at boutique investment firms. After graduation, I joined the Department of Housing and Urban Development. A government position, predictable, modest, uninspiring. Or so my family assumed. What they didn't know was that I'd been specifically recruited into the Office of Economic Resilience, analyzing housing market vulnerabilities, advising on federal investment strategies, studying the mechanics of real estate markets from a vantage point most private sector analysts would kill for. Still stamping forms for Uncle Sam? Derek would needle me across the Thanksgiving table, loosening his tie after flying in from his consulting gig in Chicago. "You know there's actual money to be made in the real world, right?" I'd take a sip of wine. Change the subject. Say nothing that mattered. In the spring of 2018, Grandpa Harold's doctor delivered the news we'd all been dreading. Stage 4. He was 84, still razor-sharp between the ears, but his body was surrendering. He summoned me to his kitchen one rainy Wednesday evening. "Elena," he said, pouring 2 glasses of bourbon, something he'd never done before, treating me as an equal, not a student. "I don't have much runway left. And I need to tell you something I've been sitting on." He pushed a thick manila envelope across the table. Inside were quitclaim deeds for 11 properties. Every income-producing building still under his name. He divested 7 others over the previous decade, but these 11 were the backbone of everything he'd built. "I'm deeding these over to you. Today. Outright ownership, no strings, no conditions. No estate complications, no lawyers fighting over scraps. This is between you and me." My vision blurred. I pressed my palms flat against the table to stop them from shaking. "Grandpa, I don't." "The current portfolio appraises at roughly $4.1 million, he continued, as though reading from a balance sheet. "Monthly net rental income after all operating expenses sits at about $17,200. I've been watching you grow for 12 years, Elena. You don't just understand this business, you feel it. You know when a building is healthy and when it's bleeding. You'll take care of what I spent my life creating." "But what about Dad? What about Derek?" His jaw tightened. "Your father walked away from this world before you were born. That was his choice, and I've made my peace with it. But Derek..." He set his glass down hard enough to make the bourbon tremble. "Derek has been robbing me." The room tilted. "What are you saying?" "For years ago, I handed him the management reins. I wanted to give him a real chance, prove me wrong, show me he had the discipline. Instead, he started siphoning cash payments from tenants that never made it to the books. Fabricated maintenance invoices billed to contractors who don't exist. Inflated vacancy reports to mask the money he was diverting. I have every bit of it documented. He's taken roughly $143,000. I couldn't speak for a long moment. "I never called him on it because I wanted to know the full extent," Grandpa said, his voice hardening. "I wanted to see if his conscience would catch up. It didn't. Not once. So here's the plan. You take legal ownership of everything. Derek keeps running the day-to-day. He won't suspect a thing. You monitor him through the management platform and build your own file. When the time is right, you'll have everything you need." We recorded the deeds 3 days later. Every property transferred into my name. Elena Marie Whitmore, sole owner. Properly filed, properly notarized, etched into county records for anyone who bothered to look. Grandpa Harold passed away 5 months later, in August 2018. At the memorial service, Derek delivered a moving eulogy. "He showed me what it means to build something that lasts," he told the congregation, his voice cracking at exactly the right moments. "He showed you nothing," I thought, gripping the edge of the pew until my knuckles went white. "And you picked his pockets while he was on his deathbed." For the next 6 years, I inhabited two separate worlds. To my family, I was unremarkable Elena. Practical car, one-bedroom apartment, a social life that revolved around book clubs and weekend farmers markets. My mother would shake her head about what a waste of potential I was. Derek would crack jokes about my government pension being my most exciting financial asset. Behind the curtain, I was constructing something they couldn't begin to imagine. Those 11 properties threw off substantial cash flow. I allowed Derek to continue as the day-to-day manager. He believed he was overseeing the portfolio on behalf of the estate, waiting for some future probate resolution. He had no concept that probate was irrelevant because the properties had never entered the estate. They were mine. I retained a forensic accounting firm to shadow every transaction Derek processed. Every diverted rent check, every phantom repair bill, every off-the-books payment he squeezed out of tenants. The dossier expanded relentlessly, month after month. Meanwhile, I managed the portfolio with surgical precision. I renegotiated the mortgages on 4 properties when interest rates cratered, boosting monthly cash flow by $2,800. I oversaw full renovations on 2 aging buildings, pushing their rental rates up by 35%. I liquidated one underperforming property, a tired duplex in a stagnating corridor, for $365,000 and reinvested the proceeds into a 6-unit complex in a revitalizing Austin district for $470,000. The portfolio matured. By late 2024, those original 11 properties had become 13, with a combined valuation approaching $5.4 million and generating $24,100 in monthly net income. But through all of it, Derek continued to skim. The forensic accountant's most recent tally, $214,000 in documented theft across 6 years. At HUD, my career accelerated 3 promotions in 6 years. By 2024, I held a senior advisory role earning $118,000 annually. My family believed that modest government salary was the full picture. They knew nothing about the $289,200 in annual rental income, the $940,000 accumulating in my brokerage accounts, or the $1.4 million in equity embedded across my properties. By any objective standard, I was wealthy. A disciplined real estate investor with a 7-figure net worth and complete financial independence. And my family pitted me as the sibling who never quite figured life out. I watched Derek lease a $92,000 Mercedes, jet off to the Mediterranean twice a year, and settle into a penthouse apartment in the Woodlands, funded in no small part by the money he was stealing from me. Property management is an absolute gold mine, he'd announce at holiday gatherings, swirling an expensive glass of wine. The passive income alone is life-changing. There was nothing passive about what he was doing. It was systematic theft. My father would practically glow. That's my boy, born with a business instinct. Mom would lean over and pat my knee. Don't compare yourself to him, sweetheart. Everyone finds their own path. I'd nod graciously. Contribute nothing. My closest friend, Naomi, was the only living soul who knew what I was sitting on. How do you keep your composure? She demanded after an especially painful Christmas dinner where Derek held court about his real estate empire for 40 straight minutes. Because I'm not hiding, I explained. I'm collecting data. Every condescending remark, every dismissive glance, every lazy assumption they make about me, it all becomes part of the record. And eventually, that record will speak for itself. That reckoning arrived in October 2024. My father phoned me on a Wednesday morning. Elena, the family needs to sit down this Saturday. Ashford and Associates, downtown. It's time we finalized Grandpa's property situation. My pulse spiked, but my voice stayed level. That situation was finalized 6 years ago, Dad. Not the buildings. They've been sitting in administrative limbo while Derek manages them. We've talked it over as a family, and the consensus is that Derek should receive them outright. He's put in the work. Silence stretched between us. Elena? You understand, don't you? It's the right thing. I'll be there Saturday, I replied evenly. The moment I hung up, I dialed my attorney, Ryan Kapoor. It's happening. They're making their play. About time, Ryan said. I've had your documentation battle ready for 4 years. Every deed, every transfer filing, the complete forensic trail. Do you want me in the room? Not yet. I want to see how far they take this before I show my hand. My next call was to the forensic accounting team. I need the final consolidated report. Every last transaction. On my desk by Friday morning. It's already compiled, the lead accountant replied. Total confirmed misappropriation, $214,780 over 6 years. Want it couriered? Please. Then I did something I'd resisted for 6 years. I called my father back. Dad, quick question. Did you ever verify whether Grandpa transferred any of those properties before he died? Heavy silence. I don't follow. Forget it. See you Saturday. He had no idea. Not one of them did. The stage was set. Saturday morning, I chose my outfit with deliberate care. Charcoal blazer, white blouse, understated pearl earrings, polished but unremarkable. The same measured impression I'd cultivated at every family function for 6 years. I walked into Ashford and Associates 20 minutes before the scheduled time. The firm's offices sprawled across the top 2 floors of a glass tower overlooking downtown Austin. It reeked of money. Derek had clearly selected it to make an impression. My mother, father, Derek, Aunt Patricia, and Uncle George were already assembled in the main conference room. Derek had claimed the seat at the head of the table, legs crossed, posture loose, radiating ownership of a room that wasn't his. Elena, Mom blinked, startled. You're actually early. Wouldn't dream of missing this, I said, settling into a chair nearest the exit. Derek's lips curled upward. Good to see you being a grown-up about this. At 10 o'clock sharp, a silver-haired attorney I'd never seen before strode in. Good morning, everyone. I'm William Ashford. Derek retained me to oversee this family conference regarding the allocation of Harold Whitmore's rental property portfolio. Thanks for being here, everyone, Derek began, rising from his chair like a CEO addressing shareholders. As all of you know, I've been personally managing Grandpa's 11 rental buildings for the past 6 years. It hasn't been easy, long hours, difficult tenants, constant maintenance headaches, but I've done it because I loved him and I wanted to honor what he created. My father nodded with visible pride. These properties carry a combined market value of approximately $4.6 million, Derek continued, pacing slowly behind his chair. They produce meaningful monthly revenue. And I think we can all agree, given the sweat equity I've invested, that the most logical and equitable outcome is for me to assume full ownership. He's earned every brick, Mom declared without hesitation. Aunt Patricia murmured her agreement. No one else has lifted a finger. I sat perfectly still, watching. So, Derek said, fixing his gaze on me. Any objections? I tilted my head slightly. Just one small question before we proceed. If you don't mind. Derek's eye twitched almost imperceptibly. Go ahead. Dad, I said, turning to face my father directly. I need you to answer something honestly. Did Grandpa Harold ever walk you through his estate planning? Specifically, what he intended for the properties? Dad shifted in his seat. He told me he had it under control. Why are you asking? And after he passed, did you ever pull the county property records? Even once. What for? Derek had everything handled. So you're telling me that right now, at this moment, you genuinely don't know whose names are on those property titles? It wasn't a question. Dad's face lost all color. That slow, sickening dawn of comprehension. Derek lurched forward. What kind of question is that? The properties belong to the estate. That's the entire point of this meeting. I reached for my phone and opened a saved folder of documents. Mr. Ashford, I apologize for the confusion, but I'm afraid there's nothing here to distribute. Would you be willing to pull up the Travis County property records? I can provide every address. William Ashford frowned but turned to his laptop. This is absurd, Derek snapped. What are you trying to pull? Dad, I said gently, meeting my father's eyes. You really don't know. His coffee cup slipped from his fingers and struck the marble tabletop. Brown liquid pooled across the surface. His hands were trembling visibly. Derek's voice cracked. Don't know what? I let the silence hang for 3 full seconds. Who actually owns those 11 buildings you've been running for 6 years? William Ashford's professional composure fractured as the county database loaded on his screen. This is highly irregular. None of these properties are registered under Harold Whitmore's name. They were all transferred in March 2018. Transferred to whom? Mom's voice was barely controlled. I rose, walked to the front of the room, and projected the documents from Ashford's laptop onto the wall screen. One at a time, slowly, letting each one sink in. Property 1, 3215 Magnolia Avenue, Austin. Deed recorded March 7, 2018. Owner, Elena Marie Whitmore. Derek's face went slack. Property 2, 482 Ridgewood Lane, Dallas. Deed recorded March 7, 2018. Owner, Elena Marie Whitmore. That's not possible, Mom breathed. Property 3, 7601 Westheimer Road, Houston. Deed recorded March 7, 2018. Owner, Elena Marie Whitmore. I continued. All 11 properties. One by one. The same name on every single deed. Hold on, Dad said, his voice fractured. You've owned these buildings for 6 years? Since 3 weeks before Grandpa died, I confirmed. He transferred them to me by quitclaim deed. Every filing was done by the book, notarized, recorded, entered into the public record. Anyone in this room could have looked it up at any time. This is fabricated, Derek said, but his voice had gone hollow. You forged something. This is fraud. Would you like to examine the original documents? I unzipped a leather portfolio and laid it open. Certified copies, all of them. Or we can phone the county recorder's office right now. Or you can review the property tax filings. I've been paying every assessment since 2018. William Ashford was scrolling rapidly through screen after screen, his composed facade disintegrating. These records are authentic. Properly executed, properly recorded, properly maintained. Ms. Whitmore has been the title holder since March 2018. The room detonated. How could you hide this from us? Mom shouted, half standing from her chair. Why would Grandpa do this behind our backs? Aunt Patricia demanded, her face flushed. But my attention was locked on Derek. I watched the truth settle across his features like a shadow. The full, devastating comprehension. Derek, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Do you understand what this means? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. It means that for 6 years, you weren't managing Grandpa's properties. You were managing mine, as an unauthorized agent, with no contract, no agreement, no legal standing whatsoever. Dad told me to, I was just. And more critically, I said, producing another folder and placing it on the table with deliberate precision, it means that every dollar you diverted, every rent payment you pocketed, every fabricated invoice you submitted, none of that was theft from a deceased man's estate. It was theft from me. Personal embezzlement from the legal property owner. I opened the second folder and spread its contents across the table. The forensic audit. This is a comprehensive transactional analysis covering 6 years of your management activity. It was prepared by Barrett and Associates, a licensed forensic accounting firm with state certification. I began reading aloud. Unit 3215, E. Magnolia Avenue. April 2018, you collected $1,950 in cash rent from tenant Daniel Pearson. You recorded the unit as unoccupied and retained the full amount. May 2018, identical tenant, identical sum. June 2018. Please stop, Derek whispered. Unit 482, B. Ridgewood Lane. You imposed a $350 administrative processing fee on tenant Sophia Ramirez, a charge that appears nowhere in her lease agreement. You collected it and never reported it. You repeated this scheme 23 times across 3 years. Stop. Over 6 years, I said, each word landing like a stone in still water, you misappropriated $214,780 from me. That figure is not an estimate. It is forensically verified, traced, corroborated, and documented down to the cent. I slid the bound report across the table to William Ashford. Every transaction is itemized in that document. Dates, dollar amounts, methodologies. Cross-referenced against the actual lease terms versus the falsified reports Derek filed. Dad was staring at Derek as though looking at a stranger wearing his son's face. You stole from your own sister? I had no idea they were hers. Derek erupted. I thought I was managing Grandpa's properties. This is a setup. A setup requires orchestration and deception, I replied, my tone clinical. All I did was own property and keep records. You chose to steal from those properties. The identity of the owner doesn't change the nature of the crime. Theft doesn't become something else because you picked the wrong victim. Mom's voice emerged thin and desperate. Elena, he's your brother. We're a family. Surely we can resolve this privately. No, I said flatly. What do you mean no? I mean there's nothing to negotiate. Derek systematically stole over $200,000 across 6 years. That's not a lapse in judgment. That's a criminal enterprise. I addressed William Ashford directly. Mr. Ashford, I assume no attorney-client privilege exists between us, since I'm not your client. He cleared his throat uncomfortably. That's correct. Then I'd ask you to note that you're a witness to everything said in this room today. I produced a third folder. This is a formal criminal complaint that I will be filing with the Texas Department of Public Safety on Monday morning. It details 6 years of felony grand theft, embezzlement, and fraudulent record-keeping. Derek exploded from his chair and slammed both hands on the table. You cannot do this to me. Uncle George was on his feet instantly, physically pulling Derek back. I'm not doing anything to you, I said evenly. I'm reporting crimes. Your crimes. Committed against me. Why? Dad asked, and the word came out broken, crumbling. Why wait all this time? Why let it go on? I held his gaze without blinking. Because I needed answers, Dad. I needed to know whether Derek would ever stop on his own. Whether any of you would think to verify anything. Whether a single person in this family would look at the public record, or ask me a genuine question about my life, or consider for even one moment that I might not be the failure you'd all decided I was. 6 years, I continued, and now the weight of those years pressed into every syllable. 6 years of sitting at that dining room table while Derek bragged about his real estate brilliance, using my buildings. 6 years of you telling me I'd squandered my potential. 6 years of Mom lamenting my dull little government career while I was quietly assembling a multi-million-dollar portfolio. 6 years of watching every single one of you choose him. Without question. Without pause. We had no way of knowing, Mom whispered. You had every way of knowing, I corrected. You chose not to look. Not once did anyone in this family express real curiosity about my life. You made your assumptions. You cast your roles. I was the disappointment, and Derek was the star. And you never tested that theory. Not once. Aunt Patricia cut in, her voice edged like glass. So this is payback. You're going to ruin your brother's life because your feelings got hurt. No, I said. I'm going to report a pattern of criminal conduct that spanned 6 years. That isn't payback, it's accountability. And if Derek had stopped stealing even once, one single year where he chose honesty, we wouldn't be here. But he never did. He accelerated. Last month alone, he diverted $9,400 in a single week. I laid one final document on the table. This is a formal termination notice for all property management services. Derek, your access to my properties ends today. You have 48 hours to surrender every key, every access code, every document, and every piece of tenant correspondence in your possession. And if I refuse, he hissed through clenched teeth. Then obstruction and unlawful conversion get added to the complaint. William Ashford spoke carefully. Ms. Whitmore, I'm obligated to disclose that I cannot represent your interests, as Derek engaged me first. However, I will say that the documentation you've presented is remarkably comprehensive. If these claims hold up, and they appear to, this constitutes very serious criminal exposure. Every claim holds up, I said. Every single one. I gathered my materials and stood. I'm leaving now. I have a meeting with my own attorney this afternoon to initiate formal proceedings. Derek, I strongly suggest you retain counsel. Experienced counsel. Elena, please, Dad said, pushing himself to his feet, his voice cracking. He's your brother. No, Dad. He's your son. And that's not the same thing. A brother doesn't steal from you for 6 years. A brother doesn't stand in front of your parents and accept praise for achievements built on your money. I paused at the door. One more thing. Those properties, they're valued at $5.4 million now. Not $4.6 million. Because while Derek was stealing, I was refinancing, renovating, and expanding. I added 2 buildings to the portfolio. That's what real asset management looks like. My properties generate $24,100 in net monthly income. That's $289,200 a year on top of my $118,000 government salary. I'm not a failure, Dad. I've been a millionaire for 4 years. You just never cared enough to notice. Mom's composure shattered. Her shoulders heaved with silent sobs. Goodbye, I said. I expect we'll be seeing each other again. In court. As my hand closed around the door handle, Derek shouted after me. You'll regret this. I'll fight you on every front. I'll prove this was entrapment. I turned slowly. Derek, I genuinely hope you fight me. Because here's what a legal discovery process will uncover. Grandpa Harold knew you were stealing from him for years before he died. He kept meticulous records. He wrote me a letter, sealed, notarized, stored in a safety deposit box, explaining precisely why he chose me and not you. Alongside that letter are his personal journals, documenting every attempt he made to talk to you about ethics, responsibility, and character. You want to take this to trial? Wonderful. We'll enter all of it into evidence. Every holiday dinner where you lied about your accomplishments. Every tenant who will testify under oath that you collected cash off the books. Every fabricated invoice bearing your signature. Or, I said quietly, you can accept what happened. You got caught. Actions carry consequences. And the person you spent 6 years dismissing as irrelevant was documenting everything you did. I pushed the door open. Elena. Dad's voice was barely audible. I stopped but kept my back to the room. Did Grandpa really know? About the stealing? Yes, I said. He gave Derek 4 years to do the right thing. Derek never did. So Grandpa did what he always did. He protected what he built. He entrusted it to the person he believed would honor it. Why didn't he tell me? I turned to face him. He tried, Dad. For decades, he tried to tell you that Derek wasn't ready. That the ambition without integrity would eventually become destructive. But you didn't want to hear it. You only ever heard what confirmed what you already believed, the brilliant son, the invisible daughter. You constructed that narrative so thoroughly that reality couldn't penetrate it. Even when the truth was sitting in a public records database, one search away. I walked out. Behind me, Derek's voice rose to a scream. Mom's sobs echoed off the conference room walls. Aunt Patricia was demanding answers from everyone and no one. I didn't look back. I kept walking. Within 72 hours, Derek's world came apart. Monday morning, I filed the criminal complaint with the Texas Department of Public Safety. By Wednesday afternoon, 2 investigators arrived at Derek's penthouse apartment in the Woodlands. He called me in a rage. They showed up at my door like I'm some kind of felon. You're a felon, I said without inflection. You stole $214,780. That constitutes multiple counts of felony grand theft under Texas law. I'll pay every cent back. Double. Just make it stop. That's not how the criminal justice system operates, Derek. Restitution doesn't erase the charges. By Thursday, the story had surfaced across industry channels. Texas property manager facing felony embezzlement charges. Derek's name was everywhere. His employer, the consulting firm, placed him on indefinite leave that morning. By the following Monday, he was terminated. His luxury buildings management company sent a lease termination notice. High-end properties, it turns out, have little tolerance for tenants under criminal investigation. Mom called me Friday night, her voice raw. Please, Elena. He's your brother. People make mistakes. That's what family is for. He made $214,780 worth of mistakes, I said. Systematically, over 6 years. That's not a mistake, Mom. That's a lifestyle choice. We'll find the money. We'll pay you back. Every dollar. How? I asked. Your savings? Dad's retirement fund? Even if you liquidated everything, you wouldn't cover what Derek took. And it still wouldn't undo 6 years of criminal activity. You're tearing this family apart over money. No, I said. Derek tore this family apart when he chose to steal from his dying grandfather and then continued stealing from his sister for 6 more years. I'm simply done pretending it didn't happen. She ended the call without another word. Dad tried a different tactic. He appeared at my apartment door the following Saturday. Elena, I need to say something, he began, and he looked like he'd aged a decade in 1 week. I failed you. Completely and profoundly. I chose Derek over and over, and I was wrong every single time. I waited. Your grandfather used to tell me you had something Derek would never develop: moral backbone, real depth of understanding. I thought he was romanticizing, playing favorites in his own way. He was stating facts, I said. I'm asking, not on Derek's behalf, but on mine, is there any path forward from here? I weighed my response carefully. Dad, Derek stole from me for 6 years. He stood in front of you and Mom and accepted admiration for success built on my assets. He called me a failure while spending my money. And in all that time, his conscience never slowed him down. Not once. Even now, he isn't sorry for what he did. He's sorry it became public. How am I supposed to respond to that? This isn't about wounded pride or sibling rivalry. It's about accountability. If I withdraw the complaint, what message does that send? That Derek can take whatever he wants because family will always clean up after him? That being a Whitmore means never facing consequences. Dad pressed his palms against his eyes. No. For 6 years, every person in this family treated me like an afterthought. Like the cautionary tale you told yourselves so Derek's story would shine brighter. And here's the thing, I proved every one of you wrong. Every single day. I built real wealth. I built real expertise. I did it methodically, strategically, with discipline. And I did it while watching my brother steal from me and my parents applaud him for it. I'm sorry, Dad said, his voice barely there. I believe you. But apologies don't rewind 6 years. They don't erase the dinners where I sat silent while you diminished me. They don't undo Derek's crimes. So there's nothing? There's one thing, I said. You can stand beside Derek while he faces what he's earned. You can stop shielding him. You can let him experience consequences for the first time in his life. That's not cruelty, Dad. That's the only thing that might actually help him. He left without speaking again. 8 months later, Derek accepted a plea agreement. 6 counts of felony grand theft, consolidated from the original 19 charges. For years of supervised probation, $214,780 in court-ordered restitution, 300 hours of community service, and a permanent felony record. His career in finance was over. His real estate ambitions were dead. His luxury lifestyle evaporated overnight. He moved into my parents' guest room. I did not attend the sentencing hearing. Ryan Kapoor represented me. The judge mandated monthly restitution payments of $1,800 for the next 12 years, plus accrued interest. The money is almost beside the point now. I have more than enough money. What matters is that Derek finally encountered a boundary. A real one. The kind that doesn't dissolve because you're the favorite child. My parents and I maintain a careful, minimal relationship now. Birthday cards. The occasional brief phone call. Polite, guarded, surface level. Mom asked me once whether I could ever forgive Derek. Perhaps, I told her. But forgiveness isn't amnesia. It doesn't mean reopening doors I closed for good reasons. It just means I've stopped letting it consume any part of my energy. Are you angry? She pressed. No, I said, and I meant it completely. I'm finished. My real family, Naomi, the colleagues who became mentors at HUD, the business partners I've cultivated over the years, organized a dinner to mark the close of the legal proceedings. To Elena, Naomi raised her glass. Who demonstrated that patient resolve will outlast reckless arrogance every time. I've continued growing the portfolio since then. 16 properties now, appraised at $7.1 million, producing over $35,000 in monthly net income. I left HUD last year to manage my investments on a full-time basis. 2 weeks ago, Derek sent me an email. No subject line. 2 sentences in the body, you were right about everything. I'm ashamed of the person I was. I didn't reply. Some people hear that and think I'm cold, heartless, unforgiving. But here's what they don't grasp. I gave Derek 6 years. 6 years to stop taking what wasn't his. 6 years to confess. 6 years to demonstrate even a shred of integrity. He never did. I gave my parents every opportunity to see me for who I actually was, not the version they'd invented to make Derek look better. They never did. I didn't destroy my family. I simply refused to keep absorbing the cost of their choices. Last week, a handwritten letter arrived at Ryan Kapoor's office, forwarded to me in a plain envelope. No return address. My father's handwriting on the front. Elena, it read. I've spent a long time sitting with what you told me. About seeing you. Really seeing you. I finally started looking. Your academic record. You graduated at the top of your class with highest honors. I never once asked about your grades. Your career. The offers you turned down from private firms because you believed in the work you were doing. I never knew any of it. The properties. I finally pulled the county records myself. You didn't just maintain what Grandpa built. You expanded it. Improved it. Turned it into something he would have been incredibly proud of. I'm ashamed that it took a criminal case to force me to open my eyes to my own daughter. I have no right to ask for forgiveness. But I want you to know I see you now. And I am staggered by what you've accomplished. Not the buildings, not the numbers. Your character. Your patience. Your refusal to become bitter even when bitterness would have been justified. Your grandfather understood you in a way I never did. He was right about everything. My only regret is that he didn't live long enough to know that I finally caught up. You owe me nothing, not a reply, not a conversation, not another thought. I just needed to say this. I'm proud of you, Elena. I should have said it every day of your life. I'm saying it now. That letter sits in the top drawer of my desk. I haven't written back. Maybe someday I will. Maybe I won't. But it doesn't change anything fundamental. I don't need his pride. I don't need his validation or his recognition or his belated belief in me. Because what I built is real. Not through commanding attention or demanding credit or performing confidence for an audience. I built it through patience, through strategy, through unwavering integrity, and through the quiet knowledge that genuine success has nothing to do with convincing people who refuse to see you. It's about constructing something so solid, so undeniable, that eventually even the willfully blind have no choice but to acknowledge it's there. At the inheritance meeting, my brother claimed all 11 properties. He screamed, "Know what?" Now he knows. They all know. I wasn't concealing my success. I was safeguarding it. And in the end, that vigilance turned out to be the wisest investment I ever made.